What is up, everybody? Man, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Coffee and Coaching. Got my good friend, Mr. Joel Perso, on with us today. What's up, brother?
Happy to be here. Got my coffee.
Got my coffee as well. I had a Zoom meeting right before this, so I had my mixture, my good stuff there. So this is just a little refill here. Man, what's good? So, so Joel and I go back, back into, was it 15 timeframe, 16, 14?
Yeah, 2015, I think.
Yeah, 15 timeframe. So Joel was kind of an instrumental piece in growing a pretty large team in brokerage there out of Milwaukee, and had the opportunity to really get connected in and work with Joel working and building the operational side, definitely kind of into my wheelhouse. And obviously there's some similarities, as you can tell by our backgrounds. There's definitely a collective, we can definitely sit here and share a lot of information as we both consume a ton of content, and no, it's been good. And then, you know, being able to still align and work with you as you transition, right? And, you know, still in the real estate space, but you guys have built a pretty awesome company. And then also, you know, you dabbling back into real estate a little bit. So I'll let you kind of fill in some of the holes and give a little bit of context for everybody kind of tuning in.
Sure. So yeah, going right back to the beginning, 2015, we jumped straight into the mastermind with the NAEA. So you were the only coach we had, but I think we were just over 100 transactions when we joined, maybe like 125. Coaching with you, with the mastermind guys, grew it up to 400 at its peak in 2017. So I was one of two owners of our team, and then eventually independent brokerage, and it had kind of a classic rocket fuel partnership where we had a kind of an inspirational visionary partner, and then myself, who, you know, came behind and focused on scalability and systems, processes, that kind of thing. So we ended up parting ways in 2017, and I started another small independent brokerage, but then ultimately joined my newer business partners in a company called VRX Media. So we do marketing and photography for residential real estate agents primarily, photos, 3D tours, drone, video, that kind of stuff. And it was a rapidly growing company when I joined in late 2017. But we were kind of missing that same piece that I had done in the brokerage side, which was systems, processes, getting good hiring processes, especially, was a big one, figuring out the people piece. And we grew. We're in over 50 cities now, have over 100 team members, and we're fortunate enough to be on the Inc. 500 for 2020. So that was pretty cool. We had a 942% 3-year growth rate. So it's been a wild ride. But a lot of fun, and you know, great lessons that you can't learn anywhere else from being inside of a chaotic, fast-growing company.
Right, 100%. And all of you guys listening, I mean, Joel selling himself a little short here, but you definitely want to know how to scale and grow fast. I mean, this is a guy to be able to sit down and pick his brain on. And so go back to, you know, getting kind of connected in 15. I mean, you guys hit the accelerator. I mean, you go 1 to 400 within, you know, a 24-month period. And I mean, that's some exponential growth inside the real estate space. Talk a little bit about, you know, what were some of the key fundamentals, because I know, you know, you're very, you know, process fundamental driven. And that was also what you were able to take into VRX. And so kind of unpack some of those principles and some of that process. And I mean, don't be afraid to share some of the lessons learned. I think that's one of the best ways for all of us to be able to learn from that. So, I would love for you to kind of unpack some of those principles for those out there listening that, yeah, man, I'm trying to grow, trying to scale, trying to get some traction, trying to get my footing. And I would love to kind of hear the process that you went through.
Sure. So for some context, we had a fairly traditional team structure. My partner, Dan, was our rainmaker, team leader. He had been a 100 deal a year guy as an individual agent, just one of the best salespeople I've ever met.
Sure.
And we launched into a period where he really wanted to get out of production. He wanted to focus on coaching and training, up and coming agents. And ultimately, the goal of our team was kind of an experiment of can a small group of highly productive agents really make an impact in the industry? So part of the reason we aligned with NAEA in the beginning was, Dan had been preaching the problems in the business, and we came across you guys and heard, you guys saying the same thing. There's, there's a leadership vacuum. There's the low bar to entry. There's the AFA, the average frustrated agent, bringing down the reputation of the industry. And so we set out to say how can we put a small group of highly productive agents together and really try to make an impact on our local market. So our structure was a little bit different than maybe a traditional team. So for example, we had licensed transaction coordinators who negotiated inspections, appraisals, things like that. But ultimately we were a team of agents and support staff, mostly similar to any other big team. So I think where we grew the fastest, and I think this is where coaching comes in, is in being challenged to raise standards, raise our own standards. So we, like many teams do, had struggles at times with, I don't know, people call it the warm body syndrome, or we've got an excited real estate agent. Maybe they have no experience. Maybe they're not a good fit, but hey, we could grow our team, add a few agents here. And so we kind of grabbed up a bunch of agents that, maybe we shouldn't have. So raising standards in terms of who's going to be the right fit for our team, for our culture, who has that growth mindset, who wants to plug into the vision of making a difference. And then also raising standards in terms of what we expect from each other, accountability, leadership. And we developed a pretty cool culture of high accountability, both ways too, holding our agents accountable to what they need to be doing, but also our agents holding us accountable as leaders. So it was a tremendous period of growth as a leader for myself, especially, who was less experienced than Dan.
Sure.
But I would say the fundamental drivers of our growth were understanding what it takes to scale as opposed to just grow. So traditional model of growth might just be adding more agents, right? Agent count, if everybody does a deal or two a month, hey, we're growing. Or wasn't our goal to add as many agents as we could. It was our goal to develop, great people into great agents. So lead generation became a huge piece of our business. And what does that take to scale? So we had to get really good at tracking our numbers. We had to get really good at accountability. We had to get really good at scripts and dialogues, conversion rates, all those things. So
Sure.
turning a lead generation process into a really scalable system. And that's, definitely where coaching comes in as well, helping to understand those principles. And I'd say of anything, the value of a coach for me has been learning principles, because they keep applying to anything that you do.
No matter what, right? Man, you guys, it's still on my board to this day. In the mastermind format, members had to do hot seats, 1 to 2 times every year at the events. And our hot seat format was, 45 to 60 minutes, depending upon, how many hot seats we had for the event. And you had about 15 minutes to share what was the one thing that's working really well in your business that you want to share with everybody. And then you spend the rest of the time trying to collectively from the group help you solve the biggest problem that you guys are wrestling with in the business. But it might have been Vegas, the Vegas mastermind. No, it wasn't Vegas. Cause that's I think the first mastermind Dan was at, but then it was one of the next ones. And I remember both of you up there, and I know you both shared the same thought, and it's, the only standards you have are the ones you enforce. And man, that just like resonated with the whole room. And like I said, I mean, that's the top of my whiteboard. It's just right there. The only standards you have are the ones you enforce. And it's just such a great reminder. We all say we have standards, but hey, my standard is, no agent on my team unless they're doing 2 deals. Okay, well, let's look at your agents. And is that true? No, the average is 1. Well, then that's your standard. And that was just such a like, wow, okay, got it. That's really, really powerful. And it's cool. That's really what you guys looked at, because your guys' organization really did have high standards. And I mean, it showed up in the brand, it showed up in the image, it showed up in the new office space. I mean, it just showed up everywhere. And you guys really lived that. And that then became the culture, right? Really became the culture that you guys have driven. So taking that learning and those principles, and then, like you said, give some context to how much VRX has grown. 17, 18, 19, 20. I mean, you guys have, done some serious numbers. So, I think it's pretty cool for everybody to listen in what those are.
Sure. So the company started in 2015 also. Nate Strom, who's our CEO, I had worked with him on our real estate team when I first got into real estate. He's actually how I got into real estate. He had gone off on his own, started his own team, and then ultimately, when Matterport, the 3D tour technology, first came out, he sort of saw an opportunity. First, they were just thinking about, hey, we could buy one of these cameras and do these for our own listings. Maybe we could use it to win more listings. So they started doing that, and really quickly saw that there was a much bigger opportunity for it. So we started just in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the first market we launched out of Milwaukee was Sarasota, Florida. In the beginning, we were very reactive. We'd get connected with somebody who just wanted to be a part of it. Hey, I could do that, what you're doing, and but I live in Dallas, or I live in San Francisco, or whatever. So we were pretty disorganized and pretty reactive in the beginning. But Nate really has just a gift for keeping things simple, staying focused. And he's just a great deal maker. So he still is the one who closes our big deals for us. But we quickly learned a few things. We couldn't just offer Matterport. We had to offer great photos too. So we had to learn and hire great photographers. We had to learn how to, combine drone into that. And so pretty rapidly became a whole media services company that we were offering. And I think the big key to the early growth was we would start out by meeting with real estate agents, trying to get office presentations, things like that. And we thought naively, if we just showed them what a Matterport was, or showed them a drone video, they would all say, "Oh wow, that's incredible," and immediately start hiring us, right? And what happened was they all said, "Oh wow, that's incredible," but nobody hired us because they didn't know what to do with it. So our growth has really been fueled by kind of boots on the ground, face-to-face, educating real estate agents on how to use the technology. Where do you put your Matterport tour? How do you sell it to on a listing presentation to help you close that listing? Do you put it on Facebook and boost it for $20 and call it a 24-hour open house? So the message became, here's how you use our services to win more listings. And then here's what you do with them to help market your properties. So when we started taking the role of educating the agents on how to use it, that's when the growth really started to take off. And that's been our primary strategy ever since. Most of our clients we met with at some point one-on-one. We targeted, when we'd go to a new market, target the top 10% of agents in that market and teams, and try to get face-to-face with them. So a lot of travel in the beginning. Obviously now we do a lot of Zoom and virtual. But yeah, definitely the key to the early growth was educating the real estate community on how to use it, especially how to use it to win more listings.
That's key.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, man, that's key, right? I mean, you got to show them how to use it, right? So it's like, hey, let me show you how to double your business. Let me show you how that we're going to be able to do this for you, rather than, hey, here it is. This is great. We think it's great, and you think it's great, and you're still not using it. So you got to show them how it's going to really help them accomplish, really growing their business.
Yeah. Yeah. So that fueled the early growth. And then we have some pretty key partnerships with a few national brokerages that are, 7-figure annually partnerships. So that's been a huge driver. We're to the point now where we get asked to open a market as opposed to going in cold somewhere. So one of our national clients might say, hey, we're launching in Birmingham, Alabama, of all places, because it's a good market for one of our national partners. So we're going live there this month. But with that growth, it rapidly became chaotic, obviously. Sure. But chaotic to the point where we had frustrated team members, we had frustrated clients, frustrated, tech partners, and that obviously all leads to frustrated leadership when you're dealing with that, right, instead of working on the things you want to be working on. So two major things that I've been able to help with is, and this is so applicable to real estate agents, because a good real estate agent, they almost all have systems and processes. They just have never systemized it, right?
Right.
They have their great listing presentation, but they've never put it down on paper so they could train their next agent for it. They do the same thing every time for their how to negotiate an inspection or an appraisal. They've never put it down on paper. They've never laid out the steps. And so these things, they just stay and live in their heads, and then they're not, you can't replicate or duplicate.
Nope.
So we had all these great things that we did in the company that maybe one person knew, or maybe they all lived in Nate, our CEO's head. So I was able to come in and say, all right, let's get this stuff down on paper. Let's train somebody else to do it. And then there's
talk through that format. Talk through that format. Say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I'm trying to bring some people on. I'm trying to get some help. I don't have time. I get it. Why it's important. I'm go. So how do I get it out of my head, getting it into a format that somebody else can see, and they know how to, to where it's duplicatable?
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way, if you already have a team member, is have them document everything while you're training them. That's what we did a lot at VRX, is as Nate was training me to do things, I was just documenting things. And if you don't have that, it's super daunting to say, all right, how am I going to start creating systems? And the simplest advice is, the next time you have to do it, just write it all down as you're doing it. Because if you, like listing presentation, for example, you're gonna try to remember everything you do on that listing presentation, or you're gonna try to remember the script you use when you're overcoming objections. But a lot of times you're not gonna remember every little piece. So if there's a way you can document it as it's happening, I think that's the most effective and the simplest way to do it, really. Yeah, it's definitely nice if you have an admin who can do that for you. Make that part of their job, is to document and create those processes. That's definitely huge.
Do you have a particular way that you like to go about doing it? Do you like record it, get it transcribed? Do you handwrite? Like what works for you?
If it's pretty complicated, like there might be some technical steps or things that really have to be done in the right order every time, I like to have it recorded somehow. So we do a ton in our company. We do a ton of real short training videos where it's just, you hit screen record, talk about what you're doing as you're doing it, and then send it off to that person. And they're, not high production value, but it's a great way to get stuff. So now we have a database of, 100 1-minute videos for anything that you need. And that's really valuable. For me personally, I like just handwriting notes because it's the way that I learn best. So if somebody's showing me how to do something, I'm physically writing notes out because it sticks in my brain better that way.
You and I are the same. You and I are the same in that regard. I mean,
and then we'll clean that up and put it in a document or in a training video or something like that. But and once it's done, I mean, the power of a system is that, it may take a long time to get it right, to develop it and to implement it. But if you get it right, it's just a multiplier in every area of your business. You don't have to expend the mental energy anymore because you have a set of steps or a process that you follow. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to make the choice. You don't have to have the discipline. You just have to follow the process. So it's huge for you as an individual agent, but it's also huge when you're growing a team or an organization, to have that material to pass on.
Yeah. And, all of you guys listening in, and this isn't sexy, but it is absolutely critical if you want to grow and you want to scale. And I believe most people that are watching this or tuning in, they want to grow, and it's growing through leverage and not yourself. And it really is about having those documented procedures. Holly's gotten just the video. I'll hear her in there recording, saying something, boom, stop, then she sends it off. So that is really a gold nugget, and being able to have those. And if you don't have to have a fancy system, you don't have to have, I think you guys use what, Trainual?
We use Trainual for our more advanced kind of formal training. But on hey, I just need to learn how to do this quick, can somebody show me? It's screen record on our computers, on our laptops, and then send it off as a video file. So yeah. And then you could take that and load it up on your YouTube channel and just create training library there on YouTube. Could be, to keep it simple, right? You don't have to overcomplicate it, but it really is key to be able to have that, and really being able to have it, especially if you're having things for team members to do. And hey, if they're out sick, they're on vacation, you need to replace, rehire, that whole training library is there. Yeah. So, one, you need to do that to get it off your plate, but two, you need to make sure what they're doing is documented as well, just to be able to have. So it's build as you go, instead of, we did it a little different back in, because I had time to, okay, here's the 100 things that we need to create systems and processes around, document it. Okay, boom, let's start checking them off. Yeah. But if you don't have that time, if you're solo or a small team, what Joel just shared, screen record, load it up on YouTube, or have it in a library somewhere to where you can, start building that out. That's fantastic. Hey, I want to go back a little bit, because I always share, the principles you took and applied to VRX, but what a lot of the stuff that you guys did in the brokerage was really, I think, man, you really became a student of Jim Collins, Beyond Entrepreneurship, and really through those principles. Man, share a little bit about that and kind of how that had a tremendous impact on what you guys were doing. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd still say Beyond Entrepreneurship has been the single most impactful book for me as a business person. I read it at a really formative time, so that helped. But it just the practicality in that book has been tremendous. So yeah, some of the things that I think we really got right on our team was doing the right things in the right order. And so what I mean by that, and I preach this all the time, I coach a few agents now and have some team members who are starting their own teams. And if you're an agent by yourself, if you have a team, it doesn't matter. The first thing you have to do is get clear on the vision. And I love the way they break it down in Beyond Entrepreneurship. It's that vision is the combination of purpose, mission, and values. So get really clear on your purpose and why is the company or exist, or why are you in this business? Why are you doing this? And be really honest about it. If it's to make money, be honest about it. It's to make money. If it's to make an impact, great. If it's to start a team so you can have that camaraderie, great. And, it's okay. There's no judgment, but be honest. you'll go off course immediately if you're not honest about why you're doing what you're doing. So you start with that purpose. And the example they use in the book is the North Star. You never achieve your purpose, but it's always guiding you forward. You always are keeping that front and center. And then you are developing the values. And one of the big core values nuggets that I've always stuck to is you're identifying more of who you are rather than who you want to be in your values. Because if you put a bunch of values on the wall that you don't have right now or aren't really part of your life already, they're going to stay on the wall. That doesn't mean you can't put integrity and always strive for integrity. But if you're not a person of integrity now, you're not going to have a core value of integrity of your business and suddenly become that, right? So identify those values that are important to you that you already exhibit to some degree, at least. And those should be the values that are guiding the business, not some kind of aspirational things that don't really connect. So developing the values, and then there's got to be a mission, and the mission is what they refer to it as the mountaintop. So there's a set time frame, there's a set goal. Everybody should know if we achieve the mission. So that's climbing the mountain.
Yeah. You broke it down. Have you gone through 2.0 yet?
I'm in it right now, but I haven't finished.
Yeah. So, what I love it because I think the original was in 92 or 94. I think it's 92. And so, he missed a few things, which is now the new chapter 2, which is people. But he gives his 2020 perspective on all the rest of the chapters. And one of the things that they made the shift with on vision is that he moved away from mission out of the vision component. And he just said, that's the BHAG. And he said, it's like you said, right? It's values, it's purpose, and then BHAG instead of mission. And he really unpacks BHAG, I think in either Good to Great or Great by Choice. He really talks about the BHAG. But he just said, that's it, right? That's the mountaintop. And like you said, everybody knows when we've gotten there. And that's where it really starts, is like, no matter what we do, it doesn't matter unless we know the goal, right? What's the goal? What's the vision? And so when you understand the 3 components of the vision, then you're able to say, okay, well, my BHAG's part of my vision, and it's an alignment to who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish at my core. And I have my decision-making filters, which are the values. And man, Holly really helped me with this. And she really, really dove in deep on start with why and find your why and the whole why process. And if you guys have ever seen that TED Talk with Simon Sinek or gone through find your, start with why, he has the little bullseye, right? It's the why, it's the how or the how and the what. And a lot of people kind of get that mixed up, and they're like, hey man, my why is my kids and my family. And that's great, but that's not your why. That's the what. And so the why is, what are you the best in the world at so that you can have whatever impact? And really unpacking that, right? And then to me, when I look at that, I'm like, oh shit, okay, well then that helps me with my purpose and why that I want to have this business to help me move closer to that North Star. And then the hows, right? The hows then become our values. So we establish the values. That's how we make decisions. That's how we move forward.
I love it.
And when you get those right, and you focus on culture and bringing people that are in alignment to that, they're free to make decisions that are in alignment to the values. And it's never a wrong decision as long as it was in alignment to the values. Now, it might not be the outcome that we were looking for. We'll learn and course correct, but it was never a bad decision because they made it based upon the values. And so just having that, man, is you're so spot on. The conversation I had, before jumping in here, with us was that was a question, right? Why? And I was like, because it aligned, our visions were in alignment. And it was the EXP question. It was like, why EXP? And I'm like, well, let me tell you, there was this time in Fort Lauderdale. We sat across from Glenn at lunch, and he shared the vision, and it aligned to ours. And that's, you want to get down to it, that's why.
Yeah.
So you got to know the goal, and then it just becomes the model, right? And I think that's something that you understand at a really, really high level, understanding business model dynamics. And really being able to kind of connect the dots, and then come strategy. So in the book, it goes the original book goes leadership, vision, strategy, tactics, and what's the other one? The last component.
Is it people in that too? They just have it.
No, he missed the people. He missed the people component. Really in that he hit leadership, which is one of my favorite chapters on leadership in any book ever written.
Yeah.
Just does a wonderful job in there. And so you guys nailed vision. And then what from that book that really helped you kind of propel and make the decisions continuing to move forward?
Yeah, I think there's a really practical framework for strategy. And when I say strategy right here, I specifically mean kind of the big picture strategy, maybe what you're setting on an annual basis. But the strategy is so key. I mean, all the pieces are key. But the strategy you have to get right too, because the strategy is going to, also include the shorter term goals. And you have to nail those too, because you can get led off course from, the vision if you're setting the wrong goals, or you're not have a strong enough value set to keep you on that course. So the strategy is so important, but, taking a look at strengths and weaknesses, a SWOT report's become kind of cliche, but it's still such a valuable exercise. Getting clear on the goals that are going to incrementally lead us towards the BHAG and ultimately towards the vision.
Do you think, you said something that just made me think. You said kind of cliche. Do you feel that when things kind of become cliche, that's when people move away from it? And it's a tried and true, right? It's a fundamental. It helps you get clear. But do you think people stop doing it because, oh, that's just cliche, I need to go do something new?
I definitely think that's a temptation of wanting to find something new, because it's commonplace now, maybe it's not that valuable, which is almost counterintuitive. But yeah, I think there's a temptation to want to go find something else if a piece of your business planning becomes sort of normal in the industry. And I also think things can become cliche and they're not being used properly, right? So if it's like, oh yeah, you should do a SWOT analysis in your business, and you sit down and, oh, what are our strengths? Well, we've got good sales growth. What are our weaknesses? Well, we could probably do better with our lead generation. Or if you're not taking it seriously, it's obviously not going to work. So I think that's part of it. That if it's not being used properly, it's not going to be valuable anyway, and then it's easier to leave it aside or say it's not important. But so yes, I mean, strategy is so key, and I think the value, a big value that we've been able to capitalize in VRX has come in the structure, and I think it's a really underappreciated and underutilized piece of a business model and of planning is how the structure works. And the reason it's so important is, and this was such a big get for me, and I don't remember who originally said it to me, but organizations behave in the way they're designed, right? They don't behave according to their purpose. They behave according to the way they're designed. So
what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
So, well, I'll give you an example, an outside of business example, but you have a mountain bike and a road bike, right? And you could say, oh, why is the mountain bike good for the mountains? Oh, well, that's what its purpose is. Well, no, it's good for mountain biking because it was designed that way. And if you take a mountain bike on a road race, you're going to lose, right? And if you take a road bike on a mountain course, you're going to fall. So it's not that it was the purpose of that bike; it's because it was designed that way. And so the same thing's true in an organization. If you design the company, design the structure to do certain things, like that's what's gonna happen. So I'll give you an example from VRX. So one of the things Nate and I originally struggled with was how to set up our processing, editing, delivery, like our whole back end operations team. How do we set it up with being clear on the vision, being clear on the goals? Well, we needed to be able to accommodate rapid growth. We wanted to keep things as simple as possible, but we also had to be scalable and profitable. So we went back and forth between two ideas. And one idea, on the one hand, was that everybody on our back-end team is going to be sort of a jack of all trades. They're going to be able to handle everything, right? No matter what comes in, photo editing, Matterport, processing refunds, whatever. Everybody's going to be able to do anything. And it checked that box of simplicity, right? Like that was really simple. That was probably the simplest thing we could have done. Checked that box. And it even checked the box of accommodating the rapid growth, because we had one type of position and we could hire that position repeatedly. The box it didn't check, and why we didn't go with it, is fast forwarding, looking forward to our vision, to our BHAG, it didn't scale. It wouldn't be profitable. It'd be way too expensive from a payroll perspective to have these highly paid specialists and then only have highly paid specialists. So what we ended up doing was having very specific department managers. And now fast forward to 50 cities, 100 people on the team. We've got highly skilled, well-paid department managers who have teams under them of lower paid administrative type positions. So we segmented the duties accordingly. And now instead of having 15 highly paid people who can do everything, we have 4 highly paid department heads. And then as we go down the organizational chart, we've got lower paid positions that are lower skilled. So how we designed it, that's how it behaves. We've got a great payroll right now because we took the time to develop and execute that way, instead of saying, oh shoot, we've got a ballooning payroll right now as we grow.
Right.
So that's just an example. Now, the organization behaves in the way that we designed it. We still are maybe not quite as simple, but we have, payroll drives profitability for us now instead of kind of sucking profitability. So it's a huge piece of the puzzle that most people don't spend enough time thinking about, is just that the way you design it is the way it's going to behave. So you want to have a referral based business, but all you're doing is buying leads? Well, you're going to have a leads based business and you're going to get on the treadmill, and that's hard to get off. If you want to have a referral based business, what are you doing to develop and invest in your database? So I think that's a huge piece that gets missed, especially with smaller teams or growing teams. It's important to design it the way you want it to behave.
No, I love that. That's and the cool thing is that you do get to design it, right? And what would you recommend from a design perspective? Some of the things to think about when you would want to design it a certain way. Do you design it to kind of what is your ability, the way you envision it? Like what are some things like you need to maybe think about this in the design process?
Yeah, I think the last time we did the designing the team, when we did expert mentors, we talked about the principle of the functional org chart. And this is a huge get. I still use a lot of the stuff from Scaling Up from Vern Harnish.
Yep.
And I think there's a great framework in there for design. But you don't start your organizational chart by putting names in. You start your organizational chart by putting the key functions in. So whatever that means in your business, if you have a lot of agents and a lot of lead generation, maybe there's a lead coordinator function that needs to be in there. If you've got a highly referral-based business, maybe there's a very different kind of admin type position. That's
client experience, somebody that's just
yeah, exactly. So the first step is to get of course, clear on the vision and the goals, and then the strategy, but then now it's getting clear on the functions. What are the key functions that are going to drive your business? So marketing, operations, sales. In real estate, it's lead gen. Where's your business coming from? How are you going to manage transactions? Is that outsourced? Is that in-house? Are they licensed? All these questions. And they all have an impact on ultimately what the organization will be like. Even your value proposition to your agents comes into play there when you're trying to staff and design the company. So, it's definitely a lot of stuff to think about. But again, it's a multiplier, because when you get it right, there's so much less friction in the business, and you can develop that freedom to do the things that you want as a team leader.
Right. Man, I listened to a really good podcast was recommended, and it was what was it? Oh, it was William and Mary podcast, Leadership in Business. And there was a guy on there, and he said CEO does three things, and the three things are culture, people, and numbers. And I was like, holy smokes, that is if you step back and think about it, if any of us listening in that have been in that head of company role, or even if you have a division within, like for you run total operations, so you have your whole team, so you're acting kind of like the CEO of that team. How are we focused on the culture, which is just a collection of our people, and are they living to the values? And then you go back to people, go back to the functions and the right people, and having what Collins talks about, the A players for that function based upon the size of your company that you can afford for right now. And the definition is, can they get the job done 90% of the time? There's some really good questions in Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0 that he thinks, you should ask yourself, is this person an A player or not? And then numbers, right? And you've got to know the numbers. Even if, you're not the one maybe tracking them, but you've got to know the numbers and know what they mean. And we always talk about within the real estate space, you've got to know, Crabtree is a great, easy to understand what numbers I need to be paying attention to, which is hard for a lot of visionary, D driving entrepreneurs. Like what numbers? I ain't got time for that. I gotta go create more value, create more opportunities. So I just thought that was such a great reminder, as everything as we're kind of, talking about here with the vision and driving strategy, but the people, but how important the culture is, how important the people are, and how important it is that the numbers. And I just thinking through, had a really a big breakthrough for a client in Alabama. That was one of the components that he was missing, and it's been the biggest get for him, this past year was understanding what numbers to pay attention to and what they mean and how you can impact those. So that was absolute. It was pretty cool to understand those three things.
Yeah, man, that's such a good. Just thinking about those three and culture too. And you said that when we were talking about values, but values being the decision-making filter. And we used to talk about it all the time in the mastermind group, and we all struggled to some degree of how do you create the culture that you want. And of course, it's you have to have the values in place. You have to be living in congruence with those values, modeling them for your team. But then you have to be hiring people who can get on board with those values and share those values. But it's such a huge piece, and I don't think it has to be as complicated as a lot of people think. It really is. It's living in alignment with the values. And in a larger organization, maybe it's implementing policies to help guide decisions that are going to lead to those values-based decisions. Right. So, and it's one of those books that I read this year that I wish I would have wrote. Horowitz on Who You Are Is What You Do.
Yeah, so good.
It's just the best book on culture I've ever read for anybody. Ben Horowitz, is it what you do is who you are, or who you are is what you do?
Something like that. I always mess it up. I get what he's saying, right? How you behave is really what your values and your culture are, right? And so being able to put that in check is key. But I would agree that is probably one of the best books on culture.
Yeah, man. And then the people, I think it gets talked about a lot, so maybe it's not overlooked, but if you haven't experienced it, you can't really understand the value of having great people in your organization. It's just, it's taken a lot of work for us with VRX to develop and get clear on exactly who we're looking for, to be disciplined and not settling for people who don't match. But so many management and leadership problems go away when you've got great people, and a high performing team. It's just having those great people, equip them to do the job, empower them to make good decisions, and that's most of the job.
Yeah, man. And I think too, that want to be a part of the vision, but also taking the time to help them get clear on what is success with their function.
Yeah.
And that was key hire recently made was, we spent a lot of time focused on that. How are we going to measure success? So we'll go back to agreements versus expectations, and really trying to nail that agreement of success right from the go, right from start, and spending time focused on how do we want to measure success? What is the ideal outcome for you, right now in this organization on this, in the seat that you're in, that function. So I love the bus kind of analogy, and it's Jesse Itzler talks about our life is a constant moving bus, right? It never stops, and we're always adding, getting people on the bus and getting people off the bus, just depending upon where we're at in the journey. And so as you're going through and you're trying to get really good people on the bus, you might not have them in the right seat, but if they're a good person and they're worthy of being on the bus, you're going to find the right seat for them. And sometimes the bus has outgrown them, and it's time to let them go get on a different bus. So it's just a pretty cool analogy to think about. Our job as leaders of our lives is just always trying to get the right people on our bus, and then helping them find the right seat to accomplish whatever it is we're trying to accomplish.
I love it.
Hey, my man T was asking, we talked a little bit about in the beginning about lead gen, kind of focused on when we were growing the brokerage and we needed some scalable, lead generation systems. What was that? What did you guys kind of uncover? How you tracked it? How you kept people accountable? Speak to that a little bit, because I think it's important for people that are adding team members in the sales capacity. What are we doing over on the sales and marketing side of the house, and keeping everything tracked and keeping everybody accountable?
Yeah, great question. So we had a lot of Google AdWords, Realtor.com, Zillow leads. Those were our primary lead sources. At our peak, we were almost 20 grand a month towards lead generation. So some things that we did to implement these scalable systems. Number one is learning the CRM inside and out. So we had everything. We were using Boomtown at the time, Commissions Inc., KV Core, whatever you're using, but learn the CRM inside and out. Learn all of the features. Learn all of the little tips you can learn that are going to make things easier. We had a very clear process for how every lead was handled. So when a lead comes in, it gets called, the lead gets texted, you set a follow-up immediately for the next contact if you don't reach them. You get them set up on a search, so they're getting properties sent from you. That's still the number one way that leads get back on your website and back engaged, is that you're sending them properties. And so there's these clear steps for every lead. Is how every lead gets handled. Okay, if you do talk to them, there's a clear process. here's the scripts for our Zillow leads. Here's the scripts for our pay-per-click leads, and they're slightly different for sure. So that's super important. And now, how does the lead get filed after that conversation? Is it a hot lead? And what does that mean? For us, that meant they're gonna start looking now. If the right house came out on the market, they'd write an offer now. That's how we define hot lead. You could say somebody in the next 60 days is a hot lead, whatever you do, but define it and then stick to it. All right, are they a nurture lead? Are they 6 months to a year? Will they get put in a different category? Are they a trash lead that had bad info or said, never call me again? Okay, well, that
Right.
gets treated differently. So be clear on what those categories are, because they're each going to have a follow-up process, right? So a hot lead is going to get contacted every week, minimum. A nurture lead, which for us, again, was in that 6 month range, they're going to get contacted every month, minimum. So everything, again, when it's systemized, you don't have to think about it. It's, all right, I set up my saved search forum, I scheduled my next call. Most of the CRMs now have all that automated anyway. It's even easier now.
Makes it easier.
And I know exactly where to put them because it's clearly defined. And then based on where I put them, that's how the follow-up process is going to happen. So getting clear on all of those steps, how each lead's being handled, is so critical, because otherwise it becomes a mess. It becomes overwhelming. You're calling people, you're forgetting to call people. It's just, lead generation can get out of control and overwhelming really easy if you don't have good systems for it.
100%.
The good news is the systems are not that hard to implement.
Right.
It's like any piece of technology, right? If you're not using it properly, it's going to make your life worse, not better. And then what we did with our team was there's a lot of accountability of, and I won't give any advice here as far as RESPA goes, but we had strongly encouraged prospecting time every morning. So the team, we had a daily huddle for our team. So we got together at 8:30. We would do a little role play, break into groups, role play, and hit the phones at 9. We did that every day, Monday through Friday. And everybody's working their leads. And obviously, who's not there. We kept track of who didn't show up for those days. There's a lot of analytics within most CRMs now for team leaders. You can see calls, you can see what's happening. And then we also tracked appointments made and appointments kept, and then new contracts. And those are some of the key numbers when you're building a team that's based on lead generation, because you have to know where the breakdowns are happening if you have agents who aren't converting. So if you're not setting appointments, we look at activity. If your activity is good and you're still not setting appointments, we're looking at your skills on the phone. If you're setting appointments but not getting contracts, we're looking at your presentation and helping you shore up your buyer presentation. If you're keeping appointments but not resulting in deals, we're going to look at something else. So
Sure.
You have to know where the breakdown's happening. Somebody who sets a lot of appointments but doesn't get a lot of contracts, there's something to look at there.
Right. In the presentation process.
Yeah. So that's it's just critical when you're building a team, because you're investing a lot of money in lead generation, in the systems, a lot of time in the accountability. And it's too difficult to know what's happening if you're not tracking those numbers.
Yeah, that's absolute gold. That goes back to those three things, right? So definitely the numbers being so important. And it's what we reveal, we can heal. And that's what we're trying to see where the conversion breakdown is. So then we can go into training and coaching mode around that area. And I think it's really a key that you've got to get everybody bought into that philosophy, right? It's like, because a lot of agents want to hide because they're not doing anything, but it's like, no, we need to shine the light so we know where we can improve. I'm not trying to, just give a blanket training. I want to do specialized training on what you're having the biggest problem with.
Yeah.
But you got to get the team bought into that first, I think is the biggest key for sure. Yeah. Brother, man, that flew by.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. I really, really appreciate you jumping in here, taking the time to share some of your knowledge and wisdom with everybody. Been absolutely valuable. I know we'll we'll have to do it again. There's a lot that I wanted to get to that we didn't even scratch the surface of. So
yeah, anytime.
got it, man. Thank you. Thank you guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode.